Afternoon, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and what I'd like to talk about this morning is how to improvise with a couple wool blankets for hammock use in a cold weather or wintertime environment. And I'm a big believer that wool blankets are very versatile. Horace Kephart always said it's better to carry 2 thinner wool blankets than 1 thick wool blanket, and the reason for that is your ability to layer those wool blankets together. And that's exactly what we're going to do today when we're talking about utilizing them as an underquilt as well as a cover for our hammock in cold weather environments. Stay with me and we'll get started. Okay, so let's first look at our hammock connection. We've got a simple JB hammock here with the speed type buckles and the tree strap that we pull up to where we get the proper hang angle. And then I generally will half hitch that thing off somehow like this with a speed release loop. All right, then I can just pull it out when I'm done, but it's going to give me good security that that line's not going to slip through that buckle. But that loop is what we're going to take advantage of. So what I've done is I've taken a queen size wool blanket. This is a Pathfinder wool blanket. And I've tied a knot in one of the diagonal corners. And I'm going to bring it down to the hammock here. And I'm actually going to put that knot through that loop that I created, that security loop that I created. I'm going to pull that down, and then I'm going to pull it taut and put another security half hitch right behind it, just like this. And I do that on both ends of the hammock. So now what we have, I'll move this out of the way for a minute. What we have now in the beginning of this setup is we have our hammock sitting here, and we have our blanket. And we can now crawl into this hammock just like this, spread that thing out and get comfortable in it. This is a nice double wide hammock. We can come underneath the hammock and grab one side of those tails on our diamond here and bring that up and pull it to the inside. So now we have one layer of wool over our body. Then we can come in and grab the other side and flip it over, and we have 2 layers of wool over our core, and we have a single layer underneath us. Now, you're pretty well hard against that wool. How well is that going to battle convection? It's going to battle it some, because it's just like having wool clothing on, but you could put a pad inside this hammock to help battle that as well, or you could stuff this thing with some type of trash bag full of leaves or whatever and put it underneath before you get in the hammock, and give yourself that under mattress, if you will, that will help battle convection as well. But down to some pretty cold temperatures, if you're wearing proper clothing, this will be more than enough for you with these 2 layers above and 1 layer underneath. Now, if you want to get a little warmer than that, you can also use a second wool blanket to create what I would call like a hot tent. I'll show you that too. So now we're going to take our second wool blanket and we're going to string it across our ridge line above our hammock, just in half, so that we can then pull this over the top of us while we're in the hammock. And if we want to, we can pin this with a horse blanket pin on both ends down pretty far, so that we have just a small opening when we pull it over the top of us here to battle convection coming from that direction. You're going to battle a lot of convection coming from this direction because this is going to hang lower than your hammock does. So the only issue you're going to have is what's coming inside this. But again, this is so close together that you're not going to get a lot of breeze even underneath there unless it's really windy and you set your hammock up in the wrong direction to the wind. So you want to have your wind going against this blanket to help battle that convection. That gives you a layer on top of the layer underneath your hammock to battle that convection, and you're going to trap all of the warm air inside this hot tent situation with wool, and you're really going to stay warm. Now, a couple things that are worth noting here for people who haven't slept in hammocks very often. First of all, remember that I mentioned you could put some type of a pad in the bottom of this. A windshield reflector will work fine. Some type of Reflectex insulation will work fine. A yoga mat will work fine, or like a Thermarest sleeping pad will work fine. The reason I don't have the wool blanket on the inside instead of underneath is twofold. Number one, if I'm laying directly on the wool blanket against this fabric, I've compressed the insulation and pretty much removed most of it. By wrapping it underneath the wool blanket, or underneath the hammock, I accomplish a couple things. Number one, I put a little bit of an insulative layer between the wind, the hammock, and myself. Number two, if you've ever tried to put anything inside of a hammock like a blanket and lay in it all night long, you quickly realize that it doesn't work out very well. It ends up balling up in different places. You end up sliding it underneath your body, or you get completely out of it and it's over your body and you're sleeping against the fabric anyway. With this system, it keeps that blanket in one spot. So once I wrap these ears over myself, the only thing that can happen is these ears can come off, but I can quickly grab them back over and put them on me. And I don't have to wrestle around with it. If I'm laying on this thing in my hammock, it becomes a disaster. I've found that out from personal experience. But this system works out very, very well for keeping that blanket in place throughout the night. Now you could just tuck these ears in to begin with and lay on top of them if you were just worried about some convection and you're not real worried about problems having to cover up your core too much in the night. You can adapt this very easily like that, and you can sleep in it with these ears inside, and then you can put this over the top of you as well if you'd like to. But for me, it's much easier always just to throw those layers over me or under me, because I can always just tuck one up over top of me and regulate my temperature that way by flipping one ear off or pulling both ears over. The same thing with this. I can flip this on and off very easily depending on how comfortable I am at night. I can pin this thing down closer here to the hammock itself with a horse blanket pin to close that gap of air that's coming through. This is a very, very versatile system. It's very easy to adapt to variations in temperatures. And in the morning, when it's chilly outside and I want to sit by the fire and get warm and drink a cup of coffee, I can just pull this blanket straight off the ridge line, wrap it around me and go sit by the fire. I'm not going to do that with a sleeping bag. So it becomes a piece of outerwear as well as a very versatile sleep system. All right, folks, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me for another video today. Just a quick little tip or trick on how you can use a couple of wool blankets in conjunction with a hammock to get a decent night's sleep in colder temperatures. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.